It happened over dinner. Not a fight. Not shouting. No slammed doors. Just laughter. We were sitting around the table like we had 100 times before, my wife scrolling on her phone between bites, my stepson half listening with his earbuds dangling, my brother leaning back with that lazy grin he gets when he thinks he's being clever. I don't even remember what I said. Something small. Maybe about a meeting ID had earlier that day. That's when my brother snorted. "You?" he said. "You don't really do anything important." Everyone laughed. Not nervously. Not awkwardly. Comfortably. My wife smiled without looking up. "I mean, he's not wrong." My stepson added, "You're kinda just there. There. Like furniture. Like background noise." I waited for someone to notice my face. To backtrack. To say, "Hey, that came out wrong." No one did. My wife finally looked up and shrugged. "You just exist. You don't actually contribute anything people would miss." That was the sentence. The one that settled into my chest and stayed. I finished my meal quietly. Helped clear the table. Loaded the dishwasher like I always did. Said goodnight like nothing had changed. But something had. I went to bed that night staring at the ceiling, replaying the words in my head, not angry, just final. You just exist. I thought about the bills I paid without comment. The accounts that never went empty. The way problems seemed to fix themselves around that house like magic no one questioned. I thought about how invisible reliability becomes. And somewhere around 3 a.m., I made a decision I didn't announce to anyone. By morning, I was already gone. Not physically. Just financially. I started with the phone. One call to the bank. Then another. I closed the joint accounts. Froze the credit lines. Cut access clean and quiet, no drama, no warnings. Cancelled the automatic payments. Mortgage. Insurance. Subscriptions. Tuition account. Then I logged into the business accounts. The ones nobody ever asked about because that stuff just works. I stopped everything. Even for my wife. Even for my stepson. Especially for them. I didn't leave a note. I didn't make a speech. I went to work like it was any other day. Around noon, my phone started buzzing. Missed calls. Texts. Did something happen to the card? The payment didn't go through. Call me now. I didn't answer. Not out of spite. Out of clarity. For the first time in years, I wanted them to feel what just existing actually looked like without the invisible scaffolding holding their lives upright. By evening, the messages changed tone. Confusion turned into irritation. Irritation into panic. My wife finally called my office line, something she hadn't done in years. "Are you playing some kind of game?" she snapped. "No," I said calmly. "I'm just existing." Silence. "I can't pay for groceries," she said. The card declined. "That's strange," I replied. "I thought you said I didn't really contribute anything." Her voice dropped. "This isn't funny." "I agree." She hung up on me. That night, I didn't go home. Not because I was afraid. Because I needed space to see whether anyone would actually miss me or just the function I served. The first week was chaos. Late fees. Overdrafts. Awkward calls to relatives. My stepson couldn't go on a school trip. My wife had to explain, over and over, that there'd been a mix-up. They didn't call to ask how I was. They called to ask when it would be fixed. By the second week, the anger set in. I was selfish. Immature. Abusive, even. Funny how quickly you don't do anything becomes you owe us everything. By the third week, the calls stopped. That worried me more than the yelling. Then, early one morning, there was a knock at my apartment door. Not loud. Not demanding. Careful. I opened it. My wife stood there. So did my brother. And behind them, my stepson, eyes down, hands in his pockets. They looked different. Smaller. Not defeated. But uncertain. My wife swallowed hard and said the last thing I expected to hear from her. We need to talk. I stepped aside and let them in. Not because ID decided anything. But because I wanted to hear what people say when the safety net they never noticed finally disappears. They didn't apologize that first morning. They sat on the edge of my couch like guests who didn't know the rules of the house, waiting for me to explain myself, as if I was the one who'd broken something. My wife spoke first. We just want to understand what's going on. I nodded. So do I. My brother cleared his throat. You didn't have to do it like this. Like what? All at once, he said. Cutting everything off. I looked at him. You said I don't do anything important. This seemed like a good way to test that theory. My stepson didn't look up. He kept his eyes on the floor, foot tapping, like he was waiting for the whole thing to end so he could go back to a life that ran on schedule. My wife crossed her arms. You're punishing us. I shook my head. No. I stopped protecting you from consequences. That landed heavier than I expected. They left after an hour. No shouting. No resolution. Just a promise that we'd talk again soon, which usually meant after someone else fixed the problem. No one fixed it. The second week hit harder. Utilities started calling. My wife had to borrow money from her sister, something she swore she'd never do again. My brother stopped answering texts from people he owed. My stepson missed another school activity, then another. That's when the blame shifted. I got messages accusing me of control. Of cruelty. Of financial abuse. Funny thing is, nobody used that word when the money was flowing freely. Only when it stopped. I stayed quiet. Not because I didn't care, but because for the first time, silence felt honest. I spent those weeks thinking about how easily a man can become a ghost in his own life. How doing the right thing every day doesn't earn gratitude, it earns invisibility. Reliability, I learned, is the most thankless form of love. The third week, my wife came alone. She looked tired. Not dramatic tired. Real tired, the kind that settles into the shoulders and stays there. She didn't sit down this time. She stood near the door, purse clutched like armor. I can't do this, she said. Do what? Pretend none of this matters, she replied. Pretend we didn't need you. I waited. She swallowed. I didn't mean what I said. That night. I was joking. No, I said gently. You were being honest without meaning to. Her eyes filled, but she didn't cry. I didn't think you'd take it seriously. That's kind of the point. She looked at me then, really looked. Not as a provider. Not as a convenience. As a man who had finally stepped out of the background. I didn't know how much you carried, she said. That doesn't make it better, I replied. It makes it late. She left again without an answer. The fourth week, things broke. My brother lost his car. My stepson got suspended for acting out at school. My wife missed a mortgage payment. That's when the anger collapsed. Pride can survive inconvenience. It can't survive exposure. They showed up together this time. No rehearsed speeches. No accusations. Just three people standing in front of me, stripped of the assumptions they'd lived on for years. My brother spoke first, voice low. I was wrong. That was it. No explanation. No excuses. Just wrong. My stepson surprised me the most. I didn't know you paid for my stuff, he said quietly. I thought it just happened. I nodded. Most things people rely on do. My wife stepped forward last. She didn't kneel. She didn't beg. But her voice broke when she said, "I'm scared." That word mattered. Not because it gave me power, but because it gave me truth. We sat for a long time after that. I didn't turn the accounts back on. Not yet. Instead, I asked one question. If I disappeared tomorrow, I said, would you miss me or just the life I made easier? No one answered right away. And for the first time, I knew the silence wasn't dismissive. It was uncomfortable. Which meant it was working. Silence has a weight to it when it's honest. After they left that day, my apartment felt smaller than it had any right to be. Same couch. Same chipped mug in the sink. Same ticking clock ID never bothered to fix. But something had shifted. The air wasn't tense anymore, it was waiting. They didn't call for 3 days. That alone told me more than a dozen apologies ever could. On the 4th day, my stepson texted. Not asking for money. Not asking when things would go back to normal. Just. Can we talk? So we met at a diner off the highway. One of those places that smells like burnt coffee and fried onions no matter what time of day it is. I got there early, sat in a cracked vinyl booth, watched trucks roll by like they were headed somewhere that mattered. He came in alone. No earbuds. No phone in his hand. He looked younger somehow. Or maybe just less protected. I didn't know, he said, before he even sat down. I didn't answer. Yves learned that when people rush to explain, it's because they're afraid of what silence might ask them to face. I mean, I really didn't, he went on. I thought stuff just happened. Like bills, trips, school things. Mom always said not to worry about it. I stirred my coffee. And you believed her? He nodded, shame rising up his neck like heat. I thought you were just there. There it was again. Not as an insult this time. As a confession. I missed 2 weeks of school lunches, he said quietly. I didn't say anything at first. I thought it was a mistake. Then the internet got shut off. Then my phone. He swallowed. I didn't realize how much of my life ran through you. I looked at him then. Really looked. You ever carry a ladder for someone climbing a roof? I asked. He frowned. What? They don't look at the ladder, I said. They look at the sky. The ladder only matters when it's gone. He nodded slowly, like the idea was sinking somewhere deeper than his pride. When he left, he didn't hug me. He didn't thank me. But he said, I see you now. That was enough. My wife came by 2 days later. No warning. Just a knock. Softer than before. She didn't sit. Didn't pace. She stood in the doorway like someone unsure they were welcome. I went through the old statements, she said. The ones I never looked at. I waited. I didn't realize how much you handled alone, she continued. I thought I was being independent by not asking questions. Independence isn't the same as disengagement, I said. She flinched, not because it was cruel, but because it was true. I told people you were boring, she said suddenly. That you didn't have ambition. And now? I asked. She looked down. Now I realize you were building a floor I was walking on without noticing. That night, she cried. Not theatrically. Not to persuade me. She cried the way people do when they finally see the cost of their comfort. I still didn't turn anything back on. Instead, I wrote everything down. Every bill. Every account. Every responsibility I'd been carrying quietly for years. I slid the paper across the table to her. This is the job, I said. If you want me back in this family, I won't be invisible again. She read it like a contract. And maybe it was. The last to come around was my brother. He didn't apologize right away. He joked. He deflected. He tried to be charming. Until I stood up and said, if you're here to laugh, you can leave. That sobered him. I didn't think you'd actually walk, he admitted. You always stayed. That wasn't strength, I said. That was fear. He nodded. Then I was wrong. Again, no excuses. Just wrong. Funny how simple the truth becomes when there's nothing left to hide behind. By the end of the 5th week, the house was still quiet. But it wasn't empty. They weren't begging anymore. They were listening. And for the first time in a long while, I wasn't trying to earn a place at my own table. I was deciding whether I wanted to sit there at all. I didn't go back all at once. That's the part people don't like to hear. They expect a switch to flip. A moment where forgiveness rushes in and everything resets to how it was. Life doesn't work like that. Not when something real breaks. I started small. One bill. Utilities first. Heat, because I'm not cruel. Then the internet, because connection matters, even when people misuse it. I left the rest untouched. Groceries stayed tight. Extras stayed gone. Comfort had to be earned back, not assumed. No one complained. That mattered more than thank yous. We started meeting once a week. Same diner, same booth. No phones on the table. That was my rule. If I was going to be present, so were they. The conversations were awkward at first. Like talking after a funeral when everyone's afraid to say the wrong thing. My wife asked questions now. Real ones. About work. About decisions. About what I wanted, not what I was willing to provide. That question caught me off guard. What do you want? I had spent so long being useful that I'd forgotten how to answer it. I want to stop feeling like I disappear when I'm quiet, I said finally. She nodded. Then don't disappear. Simple advice. Hard practice. My stepson started picking up a part-time job. Not because I asked, but because, as he put it, I don't like not knowing how things work. The first time he paid for his own shoes, he showed me the receipt like it was proof of something bigger. I didn't praise him. I just said, feels different when it's yours, doesn't it? He smiled. Yeah. Heavier. But better. My brother, he stayed distant. Pride takes longer to unwind. But one afternoon, he called and asked how I set up my accounts. Asked how I budgeted. Asked how I stayed steady without applause. I told him the truth. I stopped waiting for recognition, I said. And started demanding respect. There was a long pause on the line. I never learned that, he admitted. Neither had I. Not until it nearly cost me everything. 2 months in, my wife asked if I was coming home. Not when. Not assuming. If. I walked through the house before answering. The walls hadn't changed. The floors still creaked in the same places. But the air felt different, like a room after a storm, when everything's still damp but clean. "I'll come back," I said. But not as the man who carries everything alone. She didn't promise anything dramatic. She just said, "Then we'll carry it together. Or we won't carry it at all." That was enough. The first night back, we ate dinner quietly. No jokes. No scrolling. Just food and the sound of forks on plates. Halfway through, my stepson looked up and said, "Hey, thanks." "For what?" I asked. "For not leaving forever." I thought about that. "I didn't leave to punish you," I said. "I left to remember myself." He nodded like that made sense. And maybe it did. I still handle the finances, but not invisibly. We review things together now. Decisions are spoken out loud. Responsibility has names attached to it. Some days, it's still uncomfortable. Old habits don't die quietly. Sometimes I catch the old instinct rising, the urge to smooth things over, to absorb the weight so no one else has to feel it. But then I remember that night at the table. The laughter. The word there. And I stop. Because love without respect is just labor. And labor without acknowledgement turns a man into a shadow. I didn't reclaim my place by taking anything away. I reclaimed it by stepping forward and saying, "This is what I cost. This is what I give. And this is what I require in return." Erase the truth I learned the hard way. If you make yourself indispensable without being seen, people won't miss you, they'll miss the silence you kept for them. And sometimes the strongest thing a man can do isn't endure a little longer, it's stand up, step back, and let the world feel the weight he's been carrying all along.